Hi, and welcome to PlatformCon 2022. I'm Alison Rosewarne, the Executive Manager of Architecture at REA Group, and today I'm going to share my perspective on when can you afford a platform. To do so, I'll share REA Group's platform story. After telling you a little bit about us, I'll talk about when we started with platforms and why. I'll explain some of the benefits that we saw and then how we evolved our platform strategy. And I'll share some metrics that we use to demonstrate that value, as well as increasing investment. And finally, I'll recap my reflections. Let's start with some context about REA Group. We are an Australian business, and our purpose is changing the way the world experiences property. We operate a double-sided marketplace, supporting customers who help people with property to buy or lease or build, as well as consumers who are looking for a place to live. We also have a financial services arm to help people get home loans, and we also have a property data business. In addition to being really well known in Australia, especially for our realestate.com.au brand, we're a global player, and we have investment in India through housing.com, proptiger.com and Macan, a presence in Southeast Asia through the Property Guru Group, as well as investment in the United States through realtor.com. To share a little bit about our teams. Our teams are cross-functional. That means they have a mixture of skills within the one team, and they're also very autonomous. We prefer local decision-making. These teams are customer-oriented and focused around a particular market or customer problem, and they operate using an agile delivery methodology. We also have a you build it, you run it mindset, which means that the software that we build and run in production is the responsibility of these teams. In terms of our technology, we use a variety of programming languages depending on the problem we're trying to solve. We deploy our code to the cloud, mostly using Amazon. We also have some GCP. And our architectural style is building small components that we compose together. So we use microservices, micro front-ends, and so on. And like most companies that have been around a while, we also do have some legacy. So in 1995, the company was only a few people in a garage. This is where we began, your classic startup story. And our mission was to disrupt the property industry with digital advertising. The early years were hard work, but things were starting to look up in 1999 when more investment came through News Corp and listing on the Australian Stock Exchange. But I can't imagine that anyone was talking about platforms at this time. We were disrupting a market and establishing our business model. Actually, looking back, I think the first time we created an internal developer platform was probably in 2004. This is when our operations team put together a lot of different scripts and repositories all over the shop to help us manage our infrastructure in the data centers using Puppet. In 2006, Amazon Web Services launched with cloud storage, cloud compute, and lots more features thereafter. So now we're in 2011. So we're very interested in using the cloud. We have been experimenting, and we've also grown a lot. Our audience is up. We've launched a dedicated brand around commercial property. We've got an iOS app, and we've got quite a few more teams contributing to a smallish number of monoliths. Back in 2011, we had these three environments, and they were all deployed in the data center. So we had a shared test environment where code was regularly deployed during iterations, and then every 2 weeks, that would be deployed into a staging environment. After manual verification, that would then be deployed to production, usually after hours. Lots of teams were producing code, and we had a single operations team, and they managed every aspect of staging and production, from deployments to support and so on. We came to realize that the test environment was becoming quite a bottleneck. Lots of teams were fighting to have time on this to deploy their code and do their verification. So our IT leadership proposed a project that we would take that test environment to the cloud. And this was a good bet because it meant we could dynamically provision many test environments on demand without needing any procurement lead time. But it was quite a big unknown. We knew that we'd need a mix of operation skills to get networking and security right. We also knew that automation was key, and we'd need good software engineering practices. At this stage, we were doing a little bit of DevOps, and we had some operations members seconded into the product teams, but we didn't really want every team solving this problem in parallel. nor did we want to coordinate a massive project across all those teams. So a new project team was formed with a mixture of developers and operations. We also brought in some contractors to get some external expertise. And this project team succeeded within that year. We were able to provision test environments in the cloud through a mixture of Ruby, Bash, and Chef. In terms of the benefits, the test environment was no longer a bottleneck, and we were actually able to decommission it. Teams could deploy their code and verify in a production-like environment, which meant that our feedback loop was shortened and quality increased. We were also seeing the benefit of DevOps. There was a lot more automation and a lot more infrastructure as code. And we'd broken down a lot of silos of knowledge. There was no longer single points of failure for particular activities. And this brings me to my first lesson. You can afford a platform when the alternative would cost more. Solving common problems in each of your teams can be very expensive beyond a certain size, and so platform benefit comes with scale. Okay, so now if we fast forward a little bit. So we've had highly autonomous teams. The bottleneck of procurement has been removed so we can create lots of things quickly. But it does turn out that going to the cloud takes a bit of effort. It's rapidly evolving and we want to build a lot of tools to make things more efficient. So things are popping up left, right, and center. Things to help with single sign-on, things to help with deployment. And so we do have a lot more teams as well. And like I said, they've been autonomous, moving quickly. They've created a lot of different tools and internal platforms for developers. Some of them were delivered as an outcome of projects, and some of them were also created through our innovation days. But once they were done, they didn't necessarily have ongoing ownership, and so they weren't always maintained and extended. And so these tended to become legacy. So the platform I mentioned before to help get us out of our data center test environment, that was now legacy. Then there were some other platforms that were really good, really great, but they were a little bit difficult to use. You had to implement them quite a few times to get the hang of it, maybe even read the code or sit down with the person who wrote the tool. And so we found that this poor developer experience was really affecting adoption. Then we had a whole bunch of tools that really did very similar things. In fact, at one point, we used to joke about how many days it had been since we'd created a new cloud deployment platform. Often a team would solve a problem within their team or within their tribe, but they wouldn't have capacity to generalize it for everyone to use. And sometimes a tool was available, but we didn't have capacity to adopt it and complete the migration and remove legacy. So we had a lot of duplication. And these factors were really preventing us from focusing on our unique challenges. And we wanted to do more with platforms. We were looking at our platform maturity overall and had found some gaps, but we thought if we're going to deliver new capability, we can't keep using the approach that has gotten us into this state. Now, REA Group is a product company. We deliver software products. And so when we started to think about our platforms as products, something clicked. We realized that if we adopted product thinking, we would start to consider the entire life cycle, from innovation through growth, maturity, and ultimately to retirement. And that we wanted these products to solve common problems to get that mass benefit. We realized that providing a solution wasn't enough, that adoption would increase with a great developer experience. And this meant good documentation, support channels, and promoting self-service as much as possible. And while the individual products didn't always have that much to do with each other in isolation, we realized that ultimately they were part of a bigger brand and could fit within a brand family that we could add products to as we developed them. And that any good brand needs marketing so that you get familiarity, understanding, brand loyalty. And we knew that to really succeed, we would need buy-in at all levels. And so Colab was born, REA's tech building blocks, or our official internal developer platform. A key part of the buy-in was changing how we thought about delivery and really challenging that local optimization. So through a number of workshops, a manifesto was formed in the same style as the Agile manifesto, setting up guiding principles to work towards, such as aligned autonomy over unconstrained autonomy, and products as assets over projects as assets. We set really clear expectations around what did it mean to be a collab product. It needed to have a product manager. It needed a team providing ongoing custodianship and support. And it needed a destination or an end state in mind. We developed a framework to help us identify what might be good candidates to make into collab products. And then we had a big brand launch at our annual company kickoff event. We even had our CEO talking about platforms. And so for us, getting buy-in meant treating our platforms as products. This thinking started in mid-2017. That big launch I mentioned was in 2018. And since then, we've built and grown a number of products. We have a cloud deployment tool we call REA Shipper, an authentication platform, a design system, a software catalog, and a data platform, to name a few. And you might notice that one of those tools actually existed all along. It just needed a little bit more investment to reach that collab standard. When it came to the metrics, we really focused on adoption. So often we would look at market share or the percentage of the available market we captured. So for example, if we had 100 APIs, how many of our APIs were using our cloud deployment tool Shipper, and how much were we driving that up by in a given year? Sometimes we wanted to consolidate on a particular capability. So we might start the year with a number of systems providing authentication and then reduce down and have fewer. And these metrics were captured as objectives and key results, or OKRs, that were reported on at the company level. One of our product managers experimented with an hours saved metric, and this really resonated as well. So this could tangibly show how much more time did teams have to focus on those customer problems instead of on the plumbing. We've looked at deployment frequency as well as a good proxy metric for what our systems are trying to achieve. And I think with all of the metrics that you use, it's important to draw the connection back to that outcome. Our platform investment is solving common problems so that teams can focus on their customers. My main takeaway here is to choose your hero metric carefully. If you can build this measurement and reporting into your operating rhythm, all the better. And always remember to celebrate success. So to recap, you can afford a platform when the alternative is more expensive, and this moment comes with scale. Treating your platforms as products and getting organization-wide buy-in ensures you have the support and the mindset to succeed. And choose your hero metric carefully to make sure that you can communicate the value provided and then drive ongoing investment. And finally, in many respects, you probably have already started. Unless you're building every single thing from scratch, you'd be bootstrapped with this amazing array of open source technology and vendor solutions that are out there. So your initial platform is probably the choices that you make. So if you can't be consistent, at least be transparent and review regularly so that you can tell when you can afford a platform. Thanks very much. I'll be hanging out on the Platform Stories Slack channel. Please hit me up if you've got any questions, and thank you for listening.